Chevy is called the heartbeat of America for a reason. With SUVs made to move with your rhythm. The versatile Equinox tackles your entire day. The spacious Traverse fits your crew and your whole weekend. And Trax brings style with value you can count on. All infused with tech that has your back. So your drive always hits the right chord. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
This episode is brought to you by Google Health. Stop chasing someone else's definition of health. What matters is what's healthy for you. Google Health offers a new kind of coach built with Gemini for effortless tracking, sleep insights, and holistic coaching tailored to you. Visit googlestore.com to learn more and start a new relationship with your health. Requires Google account, Google Health app, internet, and Google Health premium subscription. Features subject to change. Availability and results vary. Not intended for medical purposes. Works independently of Gemini apps. Check responses for accuracy.
Hey, it's Bill from the Bill Simmons podcast. FIFA World Cup 26 fans, listen up. Is the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 26. Michelob Ultra is giving away $1 million worth of FIFA World Cup 26 tickets and prizes. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26. Michelob Ultra FIFA World Cup 26 superior access. No purchase necessary. Open U.S. residents 21 plus begins on December 1st, 2025. Ends on July 31st, 2026. Multiple entry periods. Visit www.MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26 for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
Hello there, Stanley Carr here. You know, I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one-of-a-kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. Before I introduce my guest today, I want to take this time to promote our brand new book, which you can see here on the screen, Champions for a Cause, Volume 1. It is a collection of some of our favorite interviews with so many of our previous guests. It is a collection, 220 pages, talking about people like Buff Bagwell, Mark Marrow, Jake the Snake Roberts, Tito Santana, and a lot of others. You can buy your copy now on Amazon.com for $15 as a paperback. I've got a very special guest with me right now. He has competed for numerous promotions across the country. Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, and the WWF. Pleased to welcome the one and only Gene Ligon has joined us. Welcome, Gene, to Wrestling with Heart.
How you doing, Stan?
It's my pleasure. So glad to have you on here. You growing up, doing a little bit of research on your childhood. You're from a town in North Carolina called Salisbury. What was childhood like for you?
Well, Salisbury is a small town just up the road here from me, about 20 miles. I was born in St. Petersburg, Florida. And my dad was down there in sales. And he decided to go to college and stuff like that and got his pharmacy degree and became a pharmacist. So he moved back to Charleston, South Carolina, opened his own store. He worked for a man for a while, but he opened his own store. And we lived in Charleston, South Carolina until I was about 5 or 6. And then we moved out to Hollywood, South Carolina, where he opened his own store in a little tiny town, which probably had 300 people there, you know, in surrounding area. So we lived right there. The cool thing about it was we lived on an old plantation. Now, it's not like the movies or anything. It had 4 or 5 homes there. And they had one of those cinder block home, which was pink. And it was like, you know, it was as small as you could be. It had 2 bedrooms, little living room, kitchen. But the cool thing was the front door, you looked at it, and it was water. I'd go 100 feet rather, and I'd be in the water. Now, back then, living on the water was considered poor. And of course, I thought it was cool. But we were in a peninsula. We were in the house right here, waterfront, water to the right, water behind us, and a little dirt road to get off. And that's where my brother and I went for until we were about, 8 or 9. We just had a great time crabbing and stuff like that. So we were living on the water and didn't realize that poor people lived on the water, and we weren't qualified to be there. So we went to this little mega elementary school and went there. And then Dad decided to move to Charleston, South Carolina, because the store, it was just too small a territory. So you had to have a little bit more room. So he opened a store in Charleston, South Carolina. We moved there to a little old house we had that was like $3,000 center block home. That's how much it cost back then. But making payments of $35 a month was hard. So if you only made $6,000 a year, that's what a pharmacist made then. Now a lot of money left over. So you had to be very careful with your money. And had some disturbances like you're seeing now on TV of all the riots and stuff. This back in the 64, 65 area. And they busted out my dad's store and everything, and it just wiped him out completely. So he would not file bankruptcy because he says it's not right. I owe these people this money. I'm going to pay them. So all the product you had in the store basically owed to people because you buy it, and if they bill you and you don't have the money to pay for it, all of a sudden everything stole everything. So he said, I've got to find a job. So he got a job at the VA in Salisbury, North Carolina, as a pharmacist at the VA. And he worked at VA in Salisbury for people that had it wasn't called PTSD back then. It was called, you had just brain problems from, explosions and stuff like that. It was the same thing, but they were just kind of like messed up. And Dad had a heart for that sort of thing because he was a Marine, a former Marine. And so he worked there for a year while we were living in Charleston. And finally, we moved up to Salisbury. And so you want to go to the city school in Salisbury, you want to go to the county school in the county. Because where we lived was either or. I said, I don't want to go to city school. I want to go to county. So I went to East Rowan High School. Loved it. Met some great people there. Getting to know people. Dad said, you want to get to know these friends of yours, you're going to have to go out for some sports. I never played sports or anything. So I went out for football. Met some guys, got along with them pretty good. I was the outsider. I was named Ligon. And everybody there was Meisenheimer, Holzhauser, Troutman. All this. I said, what is he kind of weird names? They're all German names. And my name was English. So we were living there. And after a while, they said, you going out for wrestling? I went, wrestling? I'm thinking, they have wrestling here? And I love wrestling. I watched wrestling since I was a little boy in Charleston, South Carolina. And it was good. And so he said, go out for wrestling? I said, yeah. So I'm thinking you will go to a room, there's going to be this ring set up, and you get in and you throw each other around like crazy. And I went in the room, there's a mat laid out. And I went, where's the ring? I said, what are you talking about? I said, the ring, the thing. He said, well, that's not wrestling. That's TV wrestling. So I did it. I didn't really like it that much, but it was just a bunch of guys throwing each other around having fun. And that's what you do with your little brother anyway. So I did that to my little brother all the time. So I learned how to wrestle. And my first year I had one match, and I ended up tying 2-2. And because I didn't know nothing, the guy across from me didn't know nothing. We were both glad because I grabbed his leg, he grabbed my leg. We held on for dear life. And ended up in a tie. But the next year I started learning how to do it because all the guys would see that I was going to stick it out. So they started teaching me. So you got taught by your seniors and juniors, and they wear you out in practice every day. They set you up for something, and then you got to figure out how to get out of it. And finally you get out of it, and then they do something else I said, doggone it. So I learned how to wrestle there. Went to Gardner Webb College. Didn't have wrestling there, but we formed a little club team. And I had these Iranians, which Iranians back then were people that came to America and left and came back and forth. They weren't like they are now. The people are the people, but they were just nicest guys in the world. But they knew how to wrestle freestyle wrestling because wrestling is Iran's national sport at the time. It was like, that's what they did. So I had Omar and a couple other guys, and we decided to go wrestle against colleges. So we'd go and be the prelim matches for the colleges. And we would get a bus, and we drive down there, and we go in there, and the coach of Catawba College said, "Who you got?" I said, "I got these Iranian boys, and I got a heavyset kid over here and me." I weighed about 155 pounds. So went out there, and I beat my guy. I'm like, hey. So, because, he was a beginner too. He's a prelim. And then the Iranian boy went out there and grabbed him. They locked hands and started rolling the guy. And the referee kept saying, technical violation. So what? You can't lock hands in down position. In freestyle, you can. But in amateur style, scholastic style, that's a penalty. 1 point. So he got back down again. First thing he did, locked hands and rolled the guy, expected to get points every time he rolled him. Referee said, 1 point, locking hands. And O'Malley said, "Gene, what's locking hands?" I said, "You can't do that. Just take him down, let him up." "Oh, no problem." So he just took the guy down, put him back up. I said, "Don't lock hands no more." And so the rest of the guys, there was about 3 more of them, and they just ate them alive because they knew how to wrestle. And the coach came to me and says, how many of you guys are freshmen? I said, "Well, I'm a senior getting ready to graduate. And these guys right here, they just came down for a year for partying. They're going back to Iran." He said, "Oh, man, we could have some good times." I said, "I know." So after that, graduated college, taught elementary education, K through 5. Really enjoyed it. I wasn't a big guy. And I taught there for 1 year in Kings Mountain. Then I went to West Rowan, which was in Salisbury area. Became a wrestling coach there. And all my guys, they love watching wrestling. We'd go to a match. We finally got everybody to go to a match one time to watch them wrestle. And we were yelling and screaming and hollering. Back then, teachers and students, you could do things like that. So I took a group of kids down there, and we just watched wrestling. And I said, "Man, ain't nothing like what we do on the mat, but we like it." Because we're all hooked on it. Because anybody that wrestles always wants to go be a professional wrestler. It's just the way it is. And it's a dream. So I'm sitting there, and at night, I'd stay and watch TV all night long. And all of a sudden, one night, the IWA came on. Who is this? Because all we ever watched was Jim Crockett Promotions, Mid-Atlantic. And these guys were Mil Mascaras, all these names and characters and stuff. I said, "Who are these people?" And didn't realize that some of them I'd recognized. I said, "Well, I didn't know all of them, but they had different names. Johnny Powers, Bulldog Brower, things like that." And I said, "Don't be a wrestler. Come try out." I went, "Whoa!" So earlier the year before, I had taken a girl I was going out with. We went to a pro match and saw Rip Hawk and Sweet Hansen wrestle each other called Loser Leaves Town. Now, they were partners back then, best of buddies, but all of a sudden there was a rift, and they split. And they had whoever loses this match has to leave town. So I went and watched it with her and had a good time, and it was a good match, and Sweet Hansen beat Rip Hawk, and Rip Hawk had to leave town. Well, a few weeks later, I'm refereeing high school wrestling at East Gaston High School, and I've gone through. I'm a referee, so I'm refereeing all these matches and everything. And all of a sudden, the match is over with. The heavyweight just won from Charlotte Catholic, and the girl I was dating come running across the mat to me. I said, "What are you doing?" Because the match was over. She said, "That guy that wrestled the other night, we saw him. We went to see. He's here." I said, "You're out of your mind. Nobody from there is going to come to East Gaston and Stanley, North Carolina to see a wrestling match." So I'm telling you, he's here. And sure enough, here comes Rip Hawk walking directly to me. I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I called him Sweet Hansen when he walked. "Hey, Mr. Hansen, how you doing?" Mr. Hawk. And he said, "Hey, you did a pretty good job, ref." I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "My son's the heavyweight." I said, "He did good. He won his match." He said, "Yeah." So his son wrestled for Charlotte Catholic. He said, "Why don't you come to Kings Mountain next week? We got a pro wrestling match going on. We got all for the next 2 weeks. We're taping." Really? Because Kings Mountain's right down the road. So sure enough, I go, and there's Rip Hawk. He introduces me to all these guys, the Kangaroos, Cannonball, some guy named Cannonball, Cannon, people I didn't know who they were. And so saw Tommy Young was there. Tommy Young was refereeing a match, and he wrestled. He did a decent job. But after he wrestled, he became a referee from that point on because he didn't like get smacked around. So that's how I got started. I went and started with the IWA, tried out. I'm thinking it's legit, go at it, beat each other up. Who's going to be the man? I'm 165 pounds, like I say. I'm looking at Dino Bravo. He's 225 pounds, and that's the man. And Johnny Powers, 6'5", 6". He's 245 pounds. I'm going to get killed. I am definitely going to get killed. I happened to bring one of my wrestlers with me to be my backup. He was a little redheaded guy named John Kennedy. And he said, "I got your back, Coach." I said, "You better." So
you always were a fan growing up.
Oh, yeah. Big fan. You always, if I wanted to be a pro football player. You say, "Well, how are you going to be a pro football player?" I said, "Well, I like football, and I was decent at it, but I wasn't as good as I needed to be. But in my mind, I can do it." Because I noticed that the way I look at Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, but all we ever saw was Pittsburgh Steelers occasionally. Pittsburgh, the center was 190-something pounds. I can hang. Come on. I'm a linebacker at 160 pounds. Well, the linebackers were about 200 pounds. So I can put on some weight, lift some weights, and put on some weight. And didn't realize that tore my knee up in college. So I said, I'm done. So you can't run. If you can't run a 4.6, a 4.7, a 4.8 back then, and I could run it a 4.40, but then I tore my knee and it was 5.4. I said, "Oh man!" So you lose a whole second. And I said, "Well, I don't think I'll be playing any football in the pros." And so the closest thing I could think about was be wrestling. And I said, "Well, I'd be a wrestler." But, I tried out the IWA. I made it. Didn't realize I met a guy named Chuck there, and we both were as green can be. And first match we had was me against Chuck. We had no clue. We get in the ring, and we pound each other like crazy. I mean, it's like I'm hammering him, he's hammering me. I'm trying not to hurt him, but I don't want to make it look like I'm not trying to win. All the pros are watching us, and so we're laying it on top of each other. And they're looking at, "What, these boys are crazy," because we were laying it in. And that's how my first match went. It was like I was exhausted after 15 minutes. Exhausted.
Did you feel your confidence grew once you had that first match under your belt? Because I'd imagine when you're training and going through the ropes and just really trying to put the work in, it can be a little nerve-wracking when you're starting out. But did you feel better after having that first match? Did you feel like you could do it?
The first match I had never been trained. We showed up for that tryout. They showed us, how you doing? They just were trying to get $1,500 out of you for training. And I said, "I'm not paying nobody $1,500 to train me how to wrestle." I just thought that don't seem right. Now, I understand they need to get paid for their time, but $1,500 as a teacher, I made $800 a month. So that's take-home pay would have been about $600 something. So that's almost 3 months, a little more than 2.5 months of pay. My mom and dad said, "You ain't doing nothing like that." I said, "Don't worry, I'm not paying it." So I'm sitting there at the kitchen table on a Saturday morning one day after I tried out. I said, "Forget it, I'm not doing it." And Chuck went back to driving his truck. I'm back to teaching. And next thing I get a phone call. My teaching career is over because now I have to renew, and they don't renew you right away because you didn't have a computer to go to. You couldn't find the next job. You had to go find a job. So I'm not looking for a job. And hopefully, and they said they weren't going to be able to hire me back because there'd been a cut in pay and money. So there was no money for a PE teacher, which is what I was. I was a history teacher that year, but next year I had to be a PE teacher, and there was no PE teacher available. I said, "Doggone it, I got to find another job." So there was you couldn't go hunt for it because it was not on. You didn't have anything online. You had to either know somebody, make a phone call. I didn't know anybody. So what happened was that I got no training. That Saturday, I'm sitting there having me a pimento cheese sandwich, toasted, and I'm sitting there. Phone rings. My dad had come home for lunch and took a lunch break. He only worked 3 miles down the road, so he come home for lunch. Phone rang, and I picked it up, and I recognized the voice. It's Johnny Powers. I went, Hello? This is Gene Ligon. He had a deep voice. I'm like, this is Gene Ligon. This is Johnny Powers. I said, well, of course. I knew Johnny. Hey, Miss Powers, how you doing? And he said, I need you to be in Roxborough, North Carolina tonight to wrestle. I'm like, really? Okay. I'm like, yeah. Of course, I'm scared to death because I don't know nothing. And so he said, can you bring your friend Chuck with you? I said, sure. So I called Chuck. I said, Chuck, come up here. I'll ride with you because I didn't have a car that would make it. My car was an old beat-up thing. So we took his car, drove all the way to Roxborough, North Carolina. We had to look on a map because it didn't have GPS. We're looking at, where's it at? It's past Greensboro. Okay. Oh, you got to go left to Burlington. Oh, we're trying to get there. He drove a truck a lot, so he knew the area. So we finally get to Roxborough. And on the way up there, we're thinking, what? Me and you going to tag together against some guy. We're going to beat him up, man. Now, Chuck was a boxer. He knew how to box. I knew how to wrestle. So he said, you wrestle him, I'll hit him. I said, good. So we got a plan in our head what we're going to do. And then we started thinking, what if they got us wrestling each other? Oh, because we're two rookies. If they go throw us to the wolves, so I'll tell you what, you win. I said, me? Why me? He said, because they're not going to make me the good guy. You're the guy that's got gymnastic background, all this stuff. You can flip and do stuff. I said, here's the big old lug. He said, I'll go out there and be a bad guy. I said, okay, I'll be the good guy. So we've already determined what our career is going to be. I'm going to be a good guy. You're going to be a bad guy. They haven't told us nothing. I don't know that I'm supposed to hit him hard. I don't know if I'm supposed to throw pull punches. I don't know the finish. I don't know nothing because we all thought it was legit. So we get there, and so he says, Chuck, you go that way. Gene, come this way. So we go there, and all of a sudden they're sitting there. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me something. Nothing. Go out and have a good match. They're assuming I've been trained. I'm assuming they know I have not been trained. So
you're doing this all on the fly.
That's right. We get to the ring and we just beat on each other like crazy. People are screaming. We fly. We were told no punches and don't leave the ring. Okay, because they don't. We're thinking to keep everybody safe. No punches. I said, well, I'm not going to hit my friend anyway. So we did forearms on the back, forearms to the chest. That's all we did. It kept us kind of thing. We did one thing, then we repeated it later. Then we repeated it again. That's also the next thing you end up repeating everything. So finally at the end, let's just finish it. I hope you don't get mad because I'm thinking we've been going 15, 20 minutes now. We're exhausted. So Chuck kind of threw me outside the ring. I grabbed the rope so I didn't hit the floor because I wasn't supposed to. So I grabbed the top ropes. He pulled on me. I flipped over the top, did a sunset flip. 1, 2, 3. I rolled out. I raised my hand, walked back. I laid down on the floor of the little tiny gymnasium locker room. I'm laying on the floor, and all these guys are smoking cigarettes, playing cards. You all right? I said, yeah. Hey, you look like you're tired. I said, yeah. You guys blew up. I said, yeah. I don't know what they're talking about. So at the end of the match, they pay you. Gene, come here. Pay me $80. $80. It was 15 minutes, $80. Now, as a teacher, I'm making $800 a month and taking home about $690. 20 into $690 is $30-something a day. I just got paid $80 for 15 minutes. I'm like, I got 3 days pay. I can't believe it. So all I do is so me and Chuck we sneak. He gets the car with me and we drive off. Everybody see us. So we're riding down the road. Man, Chuck, what did they pay? $80. Paid me $80 too. Wow. So we're riding down the road and they said, we got some more matches for you. So we started going once a week, having matches. 20 weeks later, I come in and said, man, Chuck, we'll do it again. I said, no, Gene, I got you wrestling Rip Tyler. I said, no, I have Chuck. No, you have Rip Tyler today. No, I have Chuck. No, it's not him. So go talk to Rip. Talk to Rip? What about? So I go over and talk. Hey, Mr. Tyler. He said, Gene, how you doing? Friendliest guy in the world. Nice guy. He said, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get in the ring. I'm going to do a little showmanship. Ba, ba, ba. I said, I don't know what you mean, ba, ba, ba. What's ba, ba, ba? Like, la-di-da this, la-di-da that. We'll do a little Shakespeare, blah, blah, blah. We'll take it home. I'll put the sleeper on Jack. I said, so we're not going to beat each other up? He said, no, I'm not going to beat you up. He was like 190 pounds, but he was a dad. I'm like, I'm so glad. So we're just going to have some fun. So we did. We had a great time. And I learned so much being taught by somebody in the ring. I'd never been trained. I just learned it on the fly. And after about a year and a half of doing this, I still had a part-time job on the side. And I was making more money than a teacher. I'm like, this ain't a bad job. And then they said, we'll take it out to King Street, South Carolina, which was freezing. You ever been to King Street, South Carolina? It's a tobacco town at the time. And they had a tobacco barn that was empty. And that's where we wrestled at, in this tin building. No chairs. People came and stood around outside the rope and watched standing. I'm like, this is crazy. It's like one of those old things you see on the movies and everything. And it's like, okay. So he wrestled and said, you're going to take the title tonight. I said, no, Rip's the champ. Oh, you're going to take it tonight. I don't feel right about that. I'm a rookie. He said, you're going to take the title. So I told Rip, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I'm thinking it was to me. No, I have to carry a stupid belt around with me all over. I don't want it. I said, so I got and Chuck had the referee because the referee didn't show up. So I'm out there and I won. They put me over, and got over with and got me, raised my hand. Chuck raised my hand, and Rick looked at it and says, "Boy, you're in trouble now." Because he thought, "Oh no, I wasn't supposed to slap the back." Oh my God, because they didn't tell Chuck anything. So we go back and found out they just messing with you. They do a lot of ribbing and stuff like that, and that's how I got started.
Now you're on the road learning from all these different people. What kinds of pieces of advice are you getting from the people that you're working against, and some of the things that you learned from your time in the ring that you've applied to today after wrestling?
Well, one thing is that it's good about showmanship, and if somebody goes to choke you, show that you're choking. If I put my hand right here, I'm just kind of like, you got to make the faces. In my mind, I was doing that. Rip Tyler had me in the ring from my whole high school, and he was choking me, and I was not reacting to the choke. So he really choked me. He went, he said, "That's how you do it, son." Oh, okay. I didn't realize in my mind, I was making faces, but I wasn't. I was mentally doing it, but I was not physically doing it. So you have to apply what you're saying something, you say it in a way, you do something in a way, you throw a punch, you're gonna sell it. You're gonna sell it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you don't do it right, and I got out of wrestling for a few years. I did a little independent stuff. Then I went to Crockett Promotions because they had a tryout, and I said, I was out of a job. My dad was been sick, so I had been helping him. He was a legislator in Raleigh and also was a pharmacist. He'd work during the legislature during the week and come home on the weekends and be a pharmacist. And so he'd been sick, and I'm riding to Raleigh with him to make sure he gets there okay and everything, because it was not good at the time. He got better, of course. But on back home, coming back one day, the radio said, "Man, employment jobs are hard to find, but here's one you might want to try. Who wants to be a professional wrestler?" And my dad looked at me. I looked at my dad. I went, "You kidding? You got wrestling on the employment job?" He said, "Just go by your unemployment office." And and so I went to the unemployment office. They had a microfiche dish thing where you slid it through and you look at it, it'd show up on the screen. No internet. And all of a sudden it said, boom, pro wrestler needed. Singles, tag team, mixed doubles, 6-man tags. And I said, send the check for $200 to Charlotte, North Carolina, post office box. It was Jim Crockett Promotions. And so he showed up at the Bojangles Arena, which back then was the Charlotte Coliseum, the original Charlotte Coliseum. So it's now called Bojangles, where the Hurricanes that won the hockey game last night, and that's where they have their hockey matches at, and Carolina Hurricanes. So back then, though, that was the place where Carolina Cougars played at, all basketball, all kind of stuff, any kind of concerts and stuff. That was the place. So I said, be there. So I get there. I have my right knee is damaged. I had torn my meniscus, and they did off. I got surgery scheduled that week. I get there, and they have us do all these exercises. I'm like, why are we doing all these exercises? What they're doing is they're breaking you down. They want you so weak. If you happen to be a super stud, which I was not, a super stud, when you step in that ring, you don't have a chance against the guys you're going to go against. They'll wear you out because they know the ring, and it's kind of new to you. You're like, what the? This is kind of weird. But we did squats all the way to the top of the Coliseum, back down, 2 squats all the way to the top, back down, 3 squats, and my knee is starting to swell up like crazy. So I started cheating. I'm not above doing that if I'm going to try to get a job. But my knee was swollen, so I did. The guy next to me, he was a young guy. He was up and down. Oh, now I'm 33 years old at the time, 32 years old. I'm like, gee whiz, this guy's fast. So he come down and said, what you got? He said, I got 10. I said, I'm on number 10 too. So he'd go up and down 3 times before I would. I said, what do you got there? He said, 15. I said, oh, we had to do 25, which when you multiply it out, it comes out to be like 300-400 squats plus the laps. Then he had to do push-ups the same way. So now your arms are fried. Your legs are fried. And I said, this, come on over here. We had to jump some hoops and stuff like that. We'd had to run around the Coliseum the first thing and had to do 5 laps in the parking lot. I'm like, gee whiz. So you get to the ring, you're exhausted. But I just kind of cheated. I said, I'm not doing it. This is all bull. So I get to the ring, and first thing I get in the ring with a guy named Mike Rotundo. You know who Mike Rotundo is? Well, Mike Rotundo was a young man. I think he just gotten married and had a baby on the way and stuff like that. Or maybe it was later on. But he was a young guy. I didn't know who he was. Never heard of him. He was at Syracuse. He went to school there. He was a wrestler at Syracuse because he could just come out of season. And he was sort of like, he knew how to wrestle. We weren't doing pro wrestling in the ring. They got in the ring and they said, get down in the referee's position. I said, well, I got a bad knee here. The guy, I don't care about your knee. That's rude. I'm trying to be very cordial here. I just paid the guy $200. So I hit on the ground, and first thing he did, tight waist, ankle pull, which is what you do in amateur wrestling. Tight waist, ankle. He pulled that knee up and went, oh. So I'm fighting it. I'm sitting there. He's trying to get me to turn over, and I won't do it. Because I'm doing all the basic stubborn stuff, which you don't have to be a great wrestler to do, but if you know how to keep your balance and core. He's trying to turn me. I'm blocking, and he's getting a cross face. And I'm doing this. He can't do anything with me. And that's easy to do against somebody who's really good. But if you do certain things, you don't have to be a real good wrestler. You just have to be a good defender. And I was a defensive wrestler. So I'm sitting there, and the next thing the guy looks out there at me is one of the Briscoe brothers. He said, let me have it. I went, holy cow, the Briscoes. Well, the Briscoes were like heroes. They were the studs. So he gets in the ring. He says, stand up. He gives me some lock up. He didn't try to mess with me like Rotundo did. Rotundo was young. He was just trying to do his job. He didn't want to get fired. So Jerry Briscoe got me and pushed me up and got me there and said, so we locked up and we fell down, and I had his head and he had my head, and we're twisting like crazy, and I'm pulling on him. He's pulling on me. We're both hurting each other. I'm like, holy cow. And he said, you let go, I'll let go. I said, I'll let go right away. He let go, got up, he said, not bad, kid. And Rotundo looked at me and says, let me have him again. Oh, I'm exhausted. So he come at me, and I made a move, which he put me to the ground real fast. I just kept the momentum going, and he landed on his back, and I slapped the mat 3 times. He wasn't really pinned, but I slapped the mat 3 times, and I pretended he was, and I slid out. I said, gotcha. He said, get back up here. I said, nope, not doing it. I'm done. And so I was leaving. And Gene Anderson looked at me and said, Salisbury, come by and see me Thursday. Does that mean I'm hired? So I leave. My dad says, you're crazy. I said, I'm too much like my dad. That's the Marine in it, I guess. And so we leave, and sure enough, I go back to see him Thursday, and I talk to Sandy Scott, and Sandy's talking to me. He says, "Oh, why you want to be a wrestler?" I said, "I need a job." I said, I've been in sales for a while. I want to do something I enjoy, and I enjoy sports. He said, "I tell you what, come by and see me in October up at Winston-Salem." And there was a Coliseum they got up in Winston-Salem. And I had my first match with the NWA against two mascots, gladiators, Hercules Hernandez, and the other guy was, I can't think of his name, but wrestled them. And I thought I was strong. I could lift some heavy weight. But when Hercules Hernandez grabbed me by the wrist to shoot me across the rope, I had no choice in the matter. I was gone. I took off like a rocket. I said, "This guy's strong." Then he got me and pushed me over his head into the military press and threw me off like I was nothing. I was weighing about 235 then because I hadn't been working out or anything. I just started back. I'm like, gosh, I was a feather to him. I need to hit the weights a little harder. Because they were all, had a little help. But they threw me, and I said, man. And so I left, and that was my first match coming back, the tag team match. And had a good time doing it. And they just started calling me and said, "We need you this week for TV." And once a week, you'd go in there, and you'd make $100, $150. And I know it don't sound like a lot of money, but back then, $150 was about an average paycheck for a week. And I'd work 1 day a week, and I'd train the rest of the time. Finally, I got a gym. My buddy Chuck, that I told you about earlier, had opened a gym with a guy that ripped him off with a bunch of money. And he was basically broke, and he was like a bad situation because he got married and had children on the way and everything. And he said, "I don't know what I'm going to do. Just get rid of this gym." I said, "Let me buy it. I'd love to buy it." So I bought the gym from him and did a little bit of both because I said, I know I'm not going to be wrestling forever. When I got to 42, 43, 44, I realized I can't wrestle forever because everything started breaking. And that's why I ended up having a gym and a little bit of part-time.
At what point did you come up with the idea of being in a tag team or pitch the idea of being in a tag team called the Thunderfoots?
Well, that was a Dusty Rhodes thing. They had been watching me wrestle, and I tore my knee up real bad, and got it worked on. And I'd come back, and then finally I messed up my shoulder, my arm, and I'm sitting there in the dressing room, and I'm not in the office of Jim Crockett. And I'd come in there and I said, "Mr. Crockett, I've been working for him for a couple of years, and I was always there, but wrestlers don't have good reputations as far as money. Some guys are just they want to take your money and leave. If you loan a guy $100, you then lost your $100. So I'll go in there and say, "Mr. Crockett, could I borrow $1,500 from you? And y'all could just take it out of my paycheck over the next few months?" He said, "Gene, I don't loan money to wrestlers." I'm like, but I'm not one of those guys. I'm trying to think I'm better than the rest of them. And they're all the same. And I said, "I'm a local guy. My dad's in the legislature. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going to rip you off." So I've heard that a dozen times, Gene. Every time I do it, I get ripped off. Okay. So I'm like getting ready to get up, and all of a sudden the door busts wide open. Here comes Dusty Rhodes. Son of a gun. He's cussing like crazy. The referee down in Georgia came to match drunk. And Johnny Weaver had to referee the matches down there. I don't have a referee tonight in Fayetteville because he was supposed to be in Fayetteville and he's drunk. I fired him. And I'm sitting there with sling in my hand. I said, "I'll do it." "Look at how you going to do it." So I took my hand out of the sling. I put it in my pocket because the shoulder was raw. I tore my pec. And I said, So I said, it was still sore as could be from the surgery. And I'm like, I jumped on the floor, slapped the mat 3 times. I popped myself back up because I could one-hand push-up, no problem. I got right back up. I said, "Dustin, what more do I need to do than that? Stay out of the way?" He said, "Yeah. Be in favor." So I take off. I got a uniform. You got a uniform? I said, I used to referee high school wrestling. I got a full uniform at home. It was a little tight because I gained a few pounds, but I wore that in there. Had white shoes on. And I didn't have any black pair of shoes because I wasn't going to buy a pair of black tennis shoes because that was the style back then. But you had to have black to referee. But I said, I got white shoes. He said, don't worry about it. I said, so I refereed for the next year. In those white shoes and black pants and black and white stripes. And I learned more wrestling watching the pros. I refereed Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. I did Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes in the Starrcade, and a couple of big matches. I was working every day, every week. I said, now I know what it's like to be a wrestler because refereeing, you're up and down with them too. Boom, 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 boom. I just tried to stay out of their way. But I just watched how the old pros could just look at them kind of lean left. They knew what to do. They just knew what, like reach out, shake somebody's hand, to stick your hand out. Well, they grab a hand, give a squeeze to the wrist, and they knew exactly what move they're going to do. I'm like, gee, these guys are amazing. But did that and made a decent living. And then I got in the gym and started doing that both back and forth. And I watched my gym at night if I had to leave and go somewhere. And that's how I got going really good. I learned more watching that. Went to the Thunderfoot thing came and went back in after I got my refereeing done out of the way. Dusty calls me and Joe Deaton in. And so they talked to you. I said, what about? He said, y'all going to be going to Kansas City to wrestle for the Central State Championship.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at Accenture.com/Spotify.
Joe, I knew who he was, but we had never tagged together or anything. We didn't, hey, Joe, how you doing? Hey, Gene, how you doing? That's all we knew. He said, y'all going to Kansas City. They got uniforms for you. You're going to be called Thunderfoots. Thunderfoots. Yeah, I have a loaded boot. And that made me go back to the Gladiators. I said, I had a loaded boot. And I watched guys a long time ago when I was a kid. They had a loaded boot. Everybody, don't boot, don't boot. And I always had to have a reason why the bad guy won because he cheated. And I'm like, we're going to be like those guys. And I grew up watching. So we fly out to Kansas City, wrestle two guys who were of Mexican descent, and but they lived in Kansas City area. And they were just nice as they could be. Went out there, and they thought we were going to have a match. And we were told, go out there, take them down, beat them quick, less than 5 minutes. Well, that's terrible. They're champions. Y'all are going in as all-powerful Thunderfoots. So we told the guys, they want us to do this thing quick. So we kind of made it go longer than 5 minutes because we, as respect to them. And we took the match. They didn't like it. We didn't really like it either, but this is business, So we finally won the title. We go back. They left the belts there. Go all the way back. They say, get your clothes packed. Y'all are driving all the way across country. You're going to be living in Kansas City for the next couple of years. Because they bought that territory. Like, okay. I'm thinking it's like it is back home. Be thousands of people showing up for matches. We're going to go for it. Yeah. Well, you might have 20 people show up. They were having to build the territory all over again. And by the time we got 3 months in, we were having hundreds of people come to matches. And all of a sudden, they told us, you're going back to Charlotte. I'm like, what? I was so glad. I was so homesick. It was ridiculous. But we went back to Charlotte and started wrestling there. And we got back, and nobody knew who we were as far as the fans because we've been in Kansas City. They didn't have all this satellite stuff then. But what they were doing was they were taping the matches there and bringing some of those matches and splice them into the shows. And without us knowing about it, they had seen Thunderfoots wrestle before. So we had Greenville, South Carolina. Me and Joe got there. Joe was a little more understood the politics of wrestling. I was just basically, I'm here to do a good job, help make the company money. They'll reward me with money for them helping them make money. And so we had a packed house. The reason is because we were part of the show. We'll get paid money based on that. But there was politics involved. And I said, So we get there. So we walked out to go walk out, and they introduced us Thunderfoots as we were walking down there, and the people went nuts. They went boo, screaming, and boos to a bad guy is like cheers to a good guy. We're like, oh, how do they know us? And Joe looked at me and says, Gene, we'll never be wrestling together again. They're going to split us up because we got too much heat. I said, why would they do that? I said, that makes no sense. He said, I'm telling you, watch. So we go out there, we wrestle the guys. I think we go over and we go back, and the people boo, boo. From that point on, Joe was in one part of the state. I'm in another part of the state. We separated. The only time we did a tag team was be on TV, and they limited us what we're supposed to do.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's kind of just the way it is. And so did a couple more, 3 or 4 more years like that. And then Joel went different places, and I basically got out of the NWA, and we went our separate ways. And then had a buddy of mine, he became one of the Thunderfoots. And we did that for a while, went to Australia and Japan, had a good time doing that. And that was basically it. David Isley was the other Thunderfoot. So
you get that exposure. You're constantly getting all this TV time and winning championships. It's experience. You can say you've been on the road constantly, going to different countries, different towns, different cities. You also got a stint with WCW, working in WWF as well. Talk about those experiences. What was it like to work for the big companies?
Well, WWF, we were down here. They had injured so many of their underneath guys like me who were just the middle road guys. We weren't stars, but we had a role to play. They had injured so many of them because they had hundreds and hundreds of guys wanting to be a wrestler. So they bring them in, put him in a ring, and a guy hadn't ever done nothing in his life. They go to shoot him. They knocked the crap out of him. They were hurt him. They injured him. And all these guys were all, jacked up and everything. And they brought us up there, and, first match, they're laying into the guys. And guys are coming and say, oh, he about broke my ribs. I said, what? Well, I was the older guy. Everybody else was in their 20s. I was in my late 30s. And I'm like, they're hitting us hard. They're laying it into us. I told myself, well, by George, you let them know where North Carolina and South Carolina from. Lay back into them. Well, let these daggum Yankees, we call them Yankees. That's just the South. It's a Southern thing. There's a bunch of Yankees up here trying to beat our tails. Show them what you got. So, you sure? I said, what are you going to do, fire us? So we'll go back home. They got to fly us back home. So we got our tickets and everything. So sure enough, we go out there, and all of a sudden they clothesline you, and they just kind of a little harder. And you're hitting against their chest and their shoulder and getting a little velocity behind it. And you come like everything's a little daisy. So when you go for a shot to the gut, lay it right in that solar plexus. Oh, you all right? You okay, bud? And he said, you hit me hard. I said, you're going to get what you give. If you give it hard, you're going to get it back hard. That's just athletics. And so we just, we got the guys got paid really good. They paid us really good. They fed us good. They got rooms for us, everything like that. And we spent about 2 weeks up there traveling or more, traveling around. And then we went back home. And we went back home. We had money in our pockets. And they said, how was it? I said, they're rough. They're real rough. So that's why I know why their guys are hurt. They wanted to have a bunch of us come over and stay up there. I said, I don't really want to stay up there too much because it's dangerous for one thing. You're giving your body to a star. And the good stars weren't that way. It's just the guys who try to prove themselves as being, they often knock crap out. I said, man, that ain't right. And we did a couple of shows with the independent group, IWA. And we did like every show we went to was a paid show. It was all right. They were selling advertisement and a book, and half the money went to the fire department. The other half went to the guy who did the booking, and he split up that money and paid us according to that. And they'd sell. One night we went to a high school, which we got there early. We were there like 3 hours early because you can't stay in a hotel room till 3. Had to get out, got in a truck or bus and rode there. We get there. It's a high school gym, an average sized gym. I said, well, how's ticket sales? Oh, it did 80 grand. 80 grand. I'm misunderstanding something here. You said you did $80,000? He said, yeah. There's not enough room here. They're paying $150 a ticket. He said, no, paying $10. Explain. They had a book, and they sold advertisement in the book. And they go in, wrestling coming to your town. And for weeks beforehand, they filled this book up with ads. And by the time they were selling it all, that book had $80,000 worth of advertising. Front, back page have a newspaper, a big article from a car dealership. Well, car dealerships spend for a Sunday paper for a full sheet, 20 grand. Chump change. So they $5 grand for a page, $5 grand for this. Before you knew it, they had that thing filled up. And then I might buy a little small business for $15. I got my little square in there. And I'm in the book. And when you did that, you got 2 free tickets to come to the match. So you basically got 2 free tickets. I can't come. Can I give them to a friend? Give them to a friend. We don't care. He paid for the tickets. And sure enough, at the end of the day, they had it, one town had 50,000, one did 40,000, one did 80,000. And we're getting paid according to how much money. We're like, $1,000. Yeah. That's unbelievable. And so we had a good time doing that for about 6 weeks. And some great stories with riding with the guys in the van. I tend to drive all the time because I like to drive. But, I'll drive a thing until it's almost empty. And David Isley, we rib him all the time. David said, Gene, you need to stop and get some gas. You're down to almost a quarter of a tank. You got plenty of time, right? And all the guys were about to die laughing because Isley's anxious about it. He's got range anxiety. Like those electric cars. Oh, we got so far to go. And he says, it's down to a quarter of a tank, Gene. You got to get some gas. David, there's plenty of gas stations here. We got plenty of time. So I drive and it get down to where the light comes on. You got to get some gas. I said, we can push. No big deal. So I finally had to pull in and fill up with gas. He said, how much did we get? I said, well, we filled it up with 18 gallons. Thing holds 19. We're almost out of gas. I said, we had another gallon. We could go another 20 miles. So we had fun ribbing him about that. He's still that way still today. Just gas.
Well, outside of the ring, I know you're very passionate about giving back to your community. As you mentioned a bit ago, you were a teacher for several years. What causes are you very passionate about?
Well, I'm still teaching. I recently had knee surgery and knee replacement. I've had my left shoulder, right shoulder, left knee, and right knee replaced. What happened, though, a month after the surgery, I walk out to the back deck to show a guy came to look at our air conditioner. Our heat element was not working right, making a noise. And it was just something dumb. So I stepped outside. I slipped and fell and twisted my knee that I just had worked on. I tore my tendon that attaches, my quadricep tendon attaches to the kneecap. Usually after a knee replacement, 2 months, you're back to normal. I'd done a month later, tore that thing. I'm sitting here today with a torn, I had a cast on it up till last week, and I'm still walking around limping. I had to wear a brace. And so I missed my last semester of teaching because I was teaching all the way up to last December, and then I'd come back in March because of knee surgery. Well, tore it. They said, you're out for the rest of the year, maybe all the way till September. I went, huh? What? I said, no, I got wrestling to do. I got a wrestling coach. I'm a wrestling coach. So I'm the weight trainer and all these kids and everything. And they're like, man, I can't do anything. And sure enough, I'm like, the tendon does not do like muscles. You can exercise a muscle. You have to bend and stretch the tendon. It has to, a little bit of time. If you do it too fast, you pop it. The doc said, if you pop it again, Gene, so we have to lock your leg in place. You won't be able to move it.
You got to rehab it.
Yeah. Been rehabbing lately. I'm to the point now I can step up on a 6-inch step and stand up and come back down. I can almost ride a bike. I had to get warmed up for about 2 minutes before the bike lets me pull my knee all the way around on a 360 because they don't want to bend all the way. But once I get it warmed up that way, it's pretty good. So I'm much further along than I was last month. Last month, I'm thinking, this thing didn't work. This thing does not work. And he said, you've got to exercise that thing. You got to PT it like crazy. So that's what I was doing. I did my workout upstairs. I have a tonal machine. Have you ever seen that? Tonal, excellent. It feels like you're really lifting weights. It's all hydraulics and computerized. Did that workout, came downstairs, rested a little bit, got my energy drink out, and so all right, I'm going to sit there and have a talk with Stanley.
Well, let's talk more about your teaching career. You've been doing it a long time. What would you say have been some of the joys of your profession, stuff you really enjoy about teaching?
Well, I like watching kids change. My first comeback to teaching was 2013 when I was looking for a job. I had my gym for 25 years, doing well in it. I'd gotten married. My wife, we're going to retire together. And the building we were in, ended up buying the building. Well, we didn't because we had to wait a little bit. We lived above the building, downtown Concord, and was doing okay. And, we're trying to build even bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden the county came in and said, we need part of your parking space of your gym. Which part? Way back in the back, which we didn't use. It was all messed up. So they decided, so that's what we need. I said, I'm good with that. So they put all the paperwork together. But the next thing I hear is I'm upstairs in my room sleeping. My wife is sleeping with me. And 5 o'clock is when the gym opens. And the guy that opened the gym for me called me about 7 o'clock. I'm sitting there getting a cup of coffee. He said, no, and he never calls. He's my pastor of my church at the time. And he said, Gene, hey, congratulations. I said, what? Let me congratulate for what? He said, yeah, you sold the property. I said, I don't own the property. So he thought I owned it. I said, no, I don't own it. I said, I own the business. That is not the building. The building's this huge building, old-time building, and about 20,000 square feet. And so I'm like, what are you doing? He said, what's this? So I go downstairs, flip that paper open, look at it. I went, those sorry people. They came by and told us, we're not going to take, we don't need the whole building. All we need is a spot in the back. I said, I'm good with that. They decided to take the whole thing. But here's the problem. They didn't follow protocol. There's laws and certain ways you got to do it. So I'm sitting there, I'm getting a little mad. And I'm like, well, the guy, my landlord, is like a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He thinks differently politically, but he's an honest guy. And I said, let me call him. So I dial his number. I get him a phone. Hey, John. Gene, what's up? I said, nothing. Hey, you got anything you want to talk about? He said, what are you talking about? I said, have you read the paper? I'm realizing he don't know anything either. And the first person you talk to, if you're going to take the property, is the owner. Because you don't just take it. You have to kind of like negotiate all this stuff. I said, you got paper? He said, no, I'm going to get it right now. I said, call me back when you got the paper. So about 5 minutes later, ring, ring. I'll be there in 5 minutes. He comes flying down there to me. He clearly lived about a mile away. He said, Gene, I'm telling you right now, I know nothing about this. They have not told me nothing. I said, John, they're taking your property without your permission. They're not going to pay you anything. The heck they are. And so sure enough, got him on the phone, had him come by. We live upstairs. The lawyer came by, sat down with me, and there's seven different vendors that rented property from that building. It was a huge building. And one was a bonding agent, one was a shirt printing people, one was a lawyer, one was a massage therapist, all this stuff. And they will kick them all out of the building. I'm like, and we're going to do it within 60 days. I'm like, gee. And so the lawyer met with us all, sat down. He kind of leaned back and said, well, it's the way it is, people. You don't own the property. It's the way it is. We're going to have you move out and everything like that. You got 60 days to do it. And everybody's sitting there going, they're mad. They're hot. Because these people have got their whole lives wrapped up in their business. Now, some of them could find a place real quick because it's a little small. 8 by 10 room. And some of them had a 20 by 20 room. I had 20,000 square feet and lots of equipment. And I'm like, he said, well, you got to move. I said, well, let me ask something right fast. He said, what if you live there? He said, well, no one lives there. I said, well, yeah. There's only 2 apartments in downtown Concord. And so the third one is illegal. I said, oh, no, it's not. He said, where do you live at? I said, I live above the gym. He said, you're living there illegally. I said, really? I said, you might want to check it out. He said, well, I said, what was it before it was what it was? He said, originally it was the morgue. It's where the bodies were brought. But the law in North Carolina at the time, if you had a dead body on property, the mortuary guy had to spend the night with the body in the building. So it had a little apartment they had upstairs. So there's your apartment. So he said, well, I said, what was it when it became the newspaper? He said, the newspaper. He said, they had a bigger apartment because the nighttime manager and his assistants worked there all night to have a place to take a nap and stuff. They just made the apartment a little bit bigger. He said, yeah. I said, when I came in, we expanded it a little bit more because I needed a place for sleeping. He said, I got to check into that. His face went white. He went back, came in, well, we need to work something out. And I knew we needed a jail for our new jail we have. I knew we needed a jail more than I needed a gym. They needed a gym. So I said, I'm getting the best I can. So they gave me a little bit of money to move, and I moved. And for 5 years, I was in the basement of another building. And it eventually got to the point where it was just not going to make any money that way because you had a big place became a small place. And you didn't had to get rid of half my equipment and stuff like that. And so you don't get a dime on the dollar for your equipment. So I'm like, I wasn't I should have fought it, but I said, nah, let it go. So I said, I got to get a job. So I got a teaching job in Waxhaw, North Carolina. Never heard of it. I put an application out online, sent it across the state. I said, Tanya, wherever they say I get a job, because she was working as a part-time daycare at a daycare place, and I got to go where the money's at. So I got one reply, Waxhaw, North Carolina. The guy called me. He said, "So let's come down and talk to me." So I go down and see him. And so I said, "Where's Waxhaw?" So I went to Waxhaw, and it was about 50 miles away. I drive over to Waxhaw. It's a school for kids that are misbehaving. They've been suspended, so it's in school like suspension, but we had them all in one room. And it's just a bunch of kids that are all mixed up and everything. That's where my heart is mostly, trying to work with kids like that. So I was there. I'm the old guy, 63 years old. And I'm the old guy. Now I'm 75. And I'm sure they know I'd be real old now. But they kept calling me, "Hey, old man." I said, "Oh, young man, how you doing?" And so once we got knowing each other, they knew they could trust me and stuff like that. And they'd come to me. One kid found some brass knuckles. He said, "Look, I found." I said, "Oh, give me those things." I said, "Son, you can't have brass knuckles." "Well, I didn't know what they were." And he said, I said, "That's an illegal object." I said, "Why don't you go over there and put it in that hole in the wall over there, and I'll call the cop down." But the cop gets him, he's got to arrest him. It's a felony, all kinds of stuff. He said, "No, I just right." I said, "Okay, take it over." So I called the cop down. The kid left class, and I called the cop down. I said, "Listen, a kid saw something over here a while ago. It's kind of behind a wall over there." And he goes, "Oh," and look at it. Whoa, it's serious stuff because beat somebody up. And at that school, somebody brought him there. So I said, the kid brought him to me. I said, he wasn't trying to do anything. He said, "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it." So nobody got in trouble or anything, but it was trouble down the road if we didn't do something. But we started seeing the kid, and I didn't tell the kid. So the kid said, "You didn't say it." "No, I told him." I said, "Didn't mention names." He guessed about 5 people, and you were one of them. so we just kind of like let it go. But we just had a good relationship with that right there. And then I went to work with a private school because my principal left. He went and opened his own school, called me and said, "Why don't you come with me?" I was coaching wrestling at Monroe High School. Doing that as I left school every day, I'd go to Monroe High School and coach wrestling and had a good time with that. Met a guy named Chuck from Chicago, and Chuck was a Chicago Bear fan. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. We right then, all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. But we got along great. I said, I'll pull for the Bears when they don't play Green Bay, and you pull for Green Bay when they don't play Bears. He said, got a deal. Let's do it. So we've been buddies ever since. And so taught at the private school, charter school, and then they closed down because different kids didn't come back. You have to have a certain amount of kids, or you have to close down. So the next job I got was at right where I'm at currently, Albemarle Middle School in Albemarle, North Carolina. And at one time they had a wrestling team back in 2006. I said, why don't we have wrestling here? Well, nobody wants to do it. I said, I'll do it. So I called, said, let's do it. So they scheduled me a wrestling thing. I got money together for the school and requested we buy a wrestling mat. And everybody said, you'll never get that. I said, I got to ask. You never get to your ASK. You never GET to your ASK. That's a quote from David Isley. So I asked, and the guy says, give me an invoice. I got weights, about $6,000 worth of weights, which value about $15,000. And the mat, we got a $16,000 mat delivered in December. And that's when I had my knee surgery and haven't been back since to see the mat. So wow. We basically got a chance to have a good wrestling team this year. I had 30 kids come out, 22 in sticking with it. 13 of them were women, little girls. I said, I got more girls on the team than do boys.
And you helped put together that team too.
A lot of people helped. I just kind of like suggested, and they just I don't want people. If you don't ask, like I say, you don't GET. And I said, why don't we have this? Oh, nobody. I said, well, no, you got to ask. So I asked. They said, sure, okay, I'll do it.
As a teacher, what would you say are some causes that you're very passionate about, as far as like fundraisers or anything to do with like kids and families? Is there anything like you're very into, like very passionate about that you're involved with?
Well, I my church is Jesus Christ is my Savior and my God. And I follow him as best I can. I fail every day. But I just loving these kids. And the problem with education today is we've got so many new things they want to try, and they've forgotten the basics. And I try to relate it to wrestling. I have kids came to my wrestling practice want to try all these different crazy moves. I said, you don't know the basics. You don't know how to get in referee's position. They do it wrong. Referee will go false start. 3 false starts in a row. You done? What? Yep. Penalty. And I said, you've got to know where to start from. We have kids come to school that can't really read very well. 4th grade reading ability, and that's the upper end. And they're in the 8th grade. Well, they think they're 8th graders. I said, you're a 4th grader. No, I don't tell it directly to them. I said, you can't read something and maintain and get it at the hardest time. I said, if you can't learn to read, then you read to learn. You have to learn to read and then read to learn. And they get so screwed up now that kids can't read, and they're like, why is he not getting it? I said, because you're not sitting down with him and reading. Let's read, and doing math the same way. We have great teachers in our school, but they're getting kids that's already come up. When you got an 8th grader or 7th grader come up, all of a sudden you're trying to teach math to him and he can't read. Well, okay. And it's just very difficult. The kids pick it up real quick once you practice with them and work with them a little bit. And I said, we're in my weight. I teach weight training and weightlifting and strength building. And it has a lot to do with a lot of stuff. I said, they keep trying to figure out how much is on the dumbbell or the bells, the barbells. I said, guys, you got a bar and 2 45-pounders. What you got? I said, 135. 135. 2 45s on each side. What is it? 2 1/4. Start doing this. Yeah. 4 45s and a 45. You can do this real quick in your head. I've got it memorized because I just know. But I said, now that after about a month and a half, they put 135 on there, put 145.2. They do all this stuff. They're picking up quicker because they're actually utilizing the numbers and what they love to do. And it's like, we're going to put a bunch of 25s on here and a 45. I said, no, do it. I said, you're going to make it harder. Do it this way. And they finally listen. And once they start listening, buddy, you got them. And they come in every day. Put 135 on their stuff. Warm up. Boom, boom. They know exactly what to do. And I said, they couldn't add 5 plus 10 before. It's just small things. But it's want to learn. Do math, do English, and do some physical education. The rest of the time work out.
And you're providing them with strategies for these kids to be able to remember so that they take away something from it, they learn it, and it helps them apply it to the other subjects that they're learning too.
Oh, yeah. Because I said, your math class is going to get a lot easier. Because y'all can sit there and look at numbers now. See 345s, you'll know that's 135. How do you know that? A 45 in a bar. 345s, that's what's on the bar. Well, that bar weighs less. No, they all weigh the same. They all weigh the same. 45-pound bar. That's what an Olympic bar is. They think, well, this one's like 47. That's, well, it's not. It's 45. Now, it might be 45.2 because you got to balance that. But I said, no. I said, when you put on these heavy clamps on the outside, now you add another 5 pounds or 7 pounds to it. Now you got to add that on. But we have these little things that don't weigh anything. But,
what is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
Just seeing a kid grow. I mean, it's like you try to do things from a heart standpoint. They see a kid come back to you and say, Coach, man, I really like to work out today. So, well, he's appreciated. And these kids today, they're no different than when I was growing up. They're just being shown different things. And they're on their phones all the time. I said, put phones up. And so we've got a rule at our school. We can't have phones. They let them carry them around with them. I said, we need to eliminate them totally because it's total distraction. When you sit there and they come to classroom, they pull their phone out. I said, give me your phone. Put it right here. You'll get it in the class. And they're ready to fight over a piece of a phone. So I'm not stealing your phone. I'm just putting it over here. You can't do this and look at the phone because you'll run into something. They'll be at the phone and bam. Where'd that wall come from? Because they don't realize. I said, it's dangerous on a weight room. If you walk by a bar that's this high in the air and it's on a rack and you walk by not looking, all of a sudden clank, I said, it's going to hurt. And it's all because you're not paying attention. And even if you're paying attention, you might bump into it. So that's one time I'm trying to teach them is, the phone is, I got my phone right here. I rarely use it to get a text. That's about it. Phone calls. But if I do my Facebook or something like that, look on that sort of thing. But I missed your messages several times because I never get on it all the time. Oh, where you at, Gene? Stanley's right up. Hey, Stan, what's up?
It's definitely changed. Technology's definitely changed the way we learn, the way we do business, the way we go to school. It's definitely created a different outlook on life than we knew it before. So we just need to learn how to deal with it and cope with it in a way where it's not going to rule over our lives, so to speak.
When I went to school, the biggest number one thing, chewing gum. That was a kick you out of class. To go to the principal's office right now. You're chewing gum in class. Ooh, because what they do is they stick it underneath the table, and you couldn't chew gum in class. Period. Couldn't chew gum on campus. Now they chew gum, they eat candy. I've got my problem is I've gained 20 pounds since the surgery. And I'm trying to work out to trim it down. I can't move very much. So I believe weight training gets you leaner and got to keep your heart rate up. So today my heart rate's been 125 beats a minute while I'm working out. I'm killing myself. And so they're going to find me laying on the floor. Look, Gene finished his workout. Ended his life. So I said, I've got to get some cardio in, but I don't want to go back to school being, 40 pounds heavier than I was when I left. And it's hard getting off now. I've lost 9 pounds in the last 2 weeks, and it's, most of it's water. I'm just like, I got to get this thing off. But working out, I've got to be the example for the kids. Of course, I'm 75, be 76 pretty soon. That's my excuse. What's yours?
Have any of your students learned about your experience as a pro wrestler, your past as a pro wrestler?
Well, I don't bring it up. And when I first got there, a couple kids, they really came to find me. And all of a sudden, like this past fall, I got all new kids, and they come down and say, "Who's this old guy?" So they look you up, and they come in, "Mr. Ligon, you're Googled. I can Google you." That's supposed to be a big deal. Yeah. Well, that's right. Most people don't go to Google to find John Jones. Gene Ligon, boom, there it is. Did you wrestle? I said, yeah, 40 years ago. Man, that's not you. Said, it is me. It is me. I said, see what happens as you get older? You fall apart.
The power of the internet.
That's right. So, and new ones discover new stuff every day. I didn't know you wrestled. I said, my gosh, I've been here for a year, and you're just now discovering it. So, the teachers come to me. I haven't told the teachers. They'll come to me and say, I Googled you the other day. They can. You're Google. You're Google. I said, is that a big deal? I said, yeah. Who finds somebody by Googling? Nobody Googles to find somebody. I said, I don't know. I'm just used to it. He said, man, I can't believe you did that. I said, had to make a living. I can't believe you teach.
Well, I'm sure, like when you run into people, or when people come up to you, if you go to signings and conventions, I'm sure it means a lot when they have these fond memories looking back at your career. It feels good to be able to be recognized, be able to have people remember you from your time in the business.
Yeah, they tell me stuff I done forgot. Don't you remember that match you had? No, I don't remember. Explain it to me. And they'll go to, yeah, I got it. Yeah, got it. But we got one coming up in Monroe pretty soon, being done August the 1st at the Union County Agricultural Center. It's going to be a Comic-Con thing where you come by and sign autographs and stuff like that. And it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are into that sort of thing, and they come, and I just try to smile and let them understand that they it's a fun thing to do, because people come tell you a story. And I remember I watched you one time, and I'm looking at a guy that's 50-something years old. I guess he was a young kid when I was wrestling. He was just a kid. Had one of my former students of mine, at West Rowan, John Kennedy, the one that was going to back me up if somebody jumped me or something like that. He came by a couple years ago and brought me a poster from the match I had at East Rowan against Rip Tyler. He said, Coach, I've been holding on to this thing ever since you left school. That was in 1976. I said, really? He said, I've had it in my bedroom all this time. And I said, first time I get a chance to see it. Now, I hadn't seen him. He's retired as a teacher. I taught him as a sophomore. He's retired as a teacher right now. And he's living in West Rowan area, and brought me a poster from 1975.
It's hilarious.
I said, holy cow. So I got it hanging on my wall upstairs, pictures of different guys that I met, everything. I'm a fan of a lot of the guys too. So, I watched them. I ended up being in the ring with them. And somebody's like, wow, I used to watch this guy on TV. Now I'm actually in the ring wrestling.
It's amazing. Well, Gene, I want to say thank you so much for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you? If you have anything you want to plug and promote, feel free.
I got a nutritional product I sell. If you look right here, where's that thing at? There it is. Verve. And you can go to my, is there a place I can put my link into it?
Yeah, we'll put it in the description box.
I think I got it right here. There, I'll put it in my little chat. I just chatted it to you. That's my link. Zenzino is a company, a worldwide company, but this product we've had for years, and Zenzino bought the company out and everything. So this is a protein energy drink. It's got 20 grams of protein in it. So after working out, I take that, help the joints and stuff like that. But have a lot of other good products also. It's just miraculous. If you order from it, use that link. There's a way to get some discounts and stuff like that also. So,
all right.
Hey.
Well, thanks again so much, Gene, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Anytime you need me, just give me a little chat, and I'll tell you how things are going along in school and stuff like that.
Will do. And remember, you can get your copy now of Champions for a Cause Volume 1. It is our brand new book. It is released now on Amazon.com as a paperback. All your favorite wrestling personalities are in here, such as Buff Bagwell, Mark Merrow, Jake the Snake Roberts, Tito Santana, and so many others. Do not miss out on this opportunity. Wrestling with Heart presents Champions for a Cause Volume 1. Get your copy now. I'm Stanley Carr, and I'll see you next time.
All right, buddy. Take care.
You too.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.